The story you're about to hear is one of quiet power, an encounter with the divine that took place in the most unexpected of places. It centers around a modern Eucharistic miracle, one that continues to leave a deep impression on those who witnessed it. The account was originally shared through the Catholic Company, but as is customary with such cases, certain details remain confidential while the Church investigates. To protect the privacy of those involved and preserve the reverence of the moment, the names and location have been kept private. In this telling, we'll refer to the witness simply as John. The miracle occurred on June 25, 2016, at exactly 6:34 p.m. during a benediction with the Blessed Sacrament, a moment of deep worship when the Eucharist is raised and adored by the faithful. But this was not a traditional church setting. The event took place inside a high school auditorium, where a makeshift altar had been carefully arranged. It was the final evening of a Catholic youth retreat, and the room was filled with energy, exhaustion, and quiet anticipation. John was attending as a chaperone, alongside his wife and their youngest son, who had been taking part in the retreat. The auditorium was full, over 300 people, including teenagers, parents, volunteers, and retreat staff. Throughout the week, the youth had given themselves fully to service. In one of the city's poorest neighborhoods, they worked hard to clean, restore, and repaint an old, abandoned elementary school, transforming it into a future community center for local children. Now, as the retreat came to a close, they gathered for one final act of worship, adoration and benediction, a sacred time to be still, to pray, and to reflect on everything they had experienced. None of them could have imagined what was about to take place. As the moment of adoration neared its end, the atmosphere in the auditorium grew still. The priest stood at the altar, preparing to offer the final blessing with the Blessed Sacrament, held high in the monstrance, a golden vessel designed to display the Eucharist for worship. That's when John saw something unusual. From where he stood among the crowd, he noticed a soft light beginning to shine from the monstrance. At first, he thought it might be a trick of the eye, maybe a reflection or stage lighting. But the light didn't fade. It grew. Slowly, steadily, it became brighter and more intense, almost like a flame rising from the altar itself. Moved by instinct, John reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Quietly and carefully, he began to take a few photos. He didn't want to cause a distraction, but something told him this moment needed to be captured. Standing beside him, his wife caught sight of the phone and turned to him, clearly irritated. From her perspective, it looked like he was texting during one of the holiest moments of the evening. She scolded him with a glare, unaware of what was actually happening. But John hadn't just snapped random photos. He had unknowingly captured a miracle. The images on his phone showed the light building, growing in strength just before the priest raised the monstrance to bless the people. In the final photo, the light reached its peak, so bright it seemed to consume the entire altar, and then, just as quickly, it disappeared. Gone. John slipped his phone back into his pocket, shaken but quiet. The priest finished the rite of benediction, reverently blessing the congregation, then processed out of the auditorium to return the Eucharist to the chapel's tabernacle. As John and his wife exited the building, she turned to him, still annoyed, and asked, "Why were you texting during benediction?" He paused for a moment, then gently replied, "I wasn't texting. I was trying to take a picture of the flame." The light was coming from the monstrance. She fell silent. Neither of them could have guessed what those photos would reveal. It wasn't until the event had ended that John realized something strange. No one else had seen what he saw. As he quietly told his wife about the flame that had risen from the monstrance, she looked at him in confusion. She hadn't noticed any light. To her, The altar had remained dimly lit, the atmosphere peaceful but uneventful. When John showed her the 4 photos he had taken, her face changed. The images clearly displayed something she had not witnessed with her own eyes. Still unsure, John turned to a few friends who had been kneeling to his left during adoration. He asked them directly, "Did you see the light coming from the monstrance?" But their responses were all the same: confused expressions, puzzled glances, and soft replies of no. None of them had seen anything unusual. Determined to understand what had just happened, John approached the priest who had led the benediction. He asked whether the priest had noticed any kind of glow, flame, or reflection while holding the monstrance. The priest, too, looked surprised and shook his head. "No," he said, "I didn't see anything like that." Then John showed him the photos. The priest stood silently, his eyes fixed on the images. Moved by what he saw, he didn't say much, just quietly took the phone and walked back into the auditorium, where the retreat staff was shutting down the sound equipment used during the worship music. The room was slowly returning to normal, chairs stacked, microphones unplugged, instruments being packed away. John followed him in and asked the staff a practical question. Was there any special lighting aimed at the monstrance or the altar? The staff answered without hesitation, no, there had been no special lighting used during the benediction. Curious and concerned, they began to search for any reflective surfaces or hidden sources of light that could have caused what John had captured. But after checking everything, stage lights, overhead bulbs, even the windows, they found nothing. John then showed the pictures to the staff. One by one, they looked. And one by one, they all confirmed the same thing. They hadn't seen the light. They hadn't seen anything at all. Word of the images began to spread quietly among a few others who had attended the retreat. Some were amazed. Others were skeptical. But no one could explain why, out of over 300 people present, John was the only one who had seen what looked like a flame rising from the Eucharist. In the days that followed, John shared the photos only with a few trusted priests, men he respected for their spiritual guidance and discretion. They looked at the images carefully, listened to his account, and then offered this advice. Keep praying. Reflect deeply. Ask God what He is trying to show you. The priests who viewed the photographs offered John one final piece of advice: to remain anonymous. They cautioned that while the event was powerful and deeply moving, there would always be people who chase signs and wonders out of curiosity, not out of faith. By keeping his identity private, John could protect the integrity of what had happened and avoid drawing attention to himself rather than to God's message. For John, this experience was more than extraordinary. It was life-changing. Though he had attended the retreat as a quiet, supportive father and chaperone, he left with a memory that would forever mark his spiritual life. And while he may have been the only one to witness the flame with his own eyes, those who heard his story and saw the photos were also deeply moved. The Catholic Church teaches that miracles are real, signs of God's mercy and power, often granted to strengthen faith in moments of doubt or suffering. Miracles are not magic. They are moments when heaven touches earth. But the Church also exercises great caution before declaring anything to be truly miraculous. As mentioned earlier, for any event to be formally recognized as a Catholic miracle, it must meet a strict set of requirements. There is a detailed process of investigation, documentation, and theological review to determine whether an event is truly beyond natural explanation and aligned with Church teachings. These kinds of investigations by the Catholic Church are never rushed. They often take years, sometimes even decades, to complete. That's because the Church follows a careful and meticulous process. Every detail must be examined. Every possible natural explanation must be ruled out. Only after extensive research, witness testimony, scientific input, and theological reflection can the Church begin to speak with clarity. This slow pace may seem frustrating to some, but it reflects a deep respect for truth. The Church does not rush to call something a miracle just to inspire emotion. The goal is to determine whether what occurred is truly from God, not the result of imagination, science, or coincidence. It's also important to understand that Catholics are not required to believe in private miracles, even ones involving the Eucharist. The Church teaches that public revelation ended with the death of the last apostle. All other supernatural events must be carefully discerned and are not considered essential for salvation. However, for those who do believe, Eucharistic miracles can serve a powerful purpose. They are not given to entertain or impress, but to wake us up, to remind us of what we so easily forget, that at every single Mass, even when nothing appears to happen outwardly, something truly miraculous takes place. Through the words of consecration, the substance of the host is transformed into the body of Jesus Christ, a mystery called the real presence. The bread remains in appearance, but its essence becomes Christ himself. Eucharistic miracles, like the one John witnessed, are not new truths, but gentle, extraordinary reminders of a truth we already profess. A truth that is quiet, constant, and easily overlooked. They remind the faithful, this is not a symbol, this is real. Throughout history, Eucharistic miracles have appeared in times of doubt, confusion, or spiritual dryness, moments when faith needed to be stirred awake. One of the earliest and most famous examples occurred in the 8th century in Lanciano, Italy. A priest who struggled to believe in the real presence was celebrating Mass when, before his very eyes, the consecrated host visibly turned into human flesh and the wine into real blood. That miracle was later subjected to scientific testing in the 1970s. The results: the flesh was from a human heart, and the blood type was a B, the same as found in more recent miracles, including the one in Buenos Aires in 1996. What makes these cases so compelling is not just their spiritual power, but their consistency across time and space. Different countries, different centuries, different people, and yet the signs point to the same truth again and again. But why the heart? Why does the Eucharist, when it transforms, become heart tissue? The answer may lie in the message. The heart is the core of life, the symbol of love, sacrifice, and suffering. Christ gave not just his teachings, but his very body. And within his body, he gave his heart beaten, pierced, and offered for the salvation of the world. These miracles, especially when they occur unexpectedly like at a youth retreat in a high school auditorium, serve as a quiet cry from heaven. I am not distant. I am not absent. I am here, beating for you. In a world flooded with distractions, noise, and doubt, these moments pierce through the veil. They ask us to pause, reflect, and return, not just to religion, but to relationship, to a deeper, living encounter with Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. When John left that high school auditorium, he carried more than just 4 photos on his phone. He carried a mystery, a moment that marked him forever, a moment that couldn't be explained away by lighting tricks, camera glare, or imagination. A moment where heaven had whispered through light. In that quiet flash, seen by no one else, God had spoken directly to one heart. And sometimes that's how he works. Not in thundering voices or dramatic signs for the whole world to see, but in moments so personal and gentle that they're easy to miss, unless you're paying attention. We live in an age where it's harder than ever to believe in the unseen. Technology dominates our senses. Instant information floods our screens, and faith, for many, has become a private hope instead of a public truth. Even among believers, there's often a gap between what we say we believe and what we experience. And yet, in every generation, God reminds us, "I am still here. I have not left you." That's what Eucharistic miracles are. Not proof for the skeptical, but reminders for the forgetful. Not spectacles, but signs, gentle signs that pierce the noise and say, "The mystery is real." Jesus said, "This is my body, given up for you." And every time a priest stands at the altar, those same words are spoken again. Not as poetry, not as a metaphor, but as a living reality. The Church teaches that in the Eucharist, the bread and wine are changed in substance, even though their outward appearance stays the same. This transformation is called transubstantiation. It means that while the bread still looks and tastes like bread, it has become the body of Christ, and the wine, while it looks like wine, is now His blood. That's a bold claim. But for 2,000 years, Catholics have believed it, and many have died for it. Eucharistic miracles are not new beliefs. They are visible echoes of what the Church already teaches. They are God's way of lifting the veil just a little, showing us what we cannot see with our eyes, but must believe with our hearts. But why now? Why are these miracles happening more often in recent decades? Perhaps the answer lies in us. We are a generation that doubts. We want to believe, but we also want evidence. We want meaning, but we also want control. We ask for signs, but we are afraid to surrender. In this tension, God meets us with love, not condemnation. He offers signs, but never forces them. He invites, but never demands. He speaks, but waits for us to listen. And maybe that's why John's story matters so much. It wasn't about crowds of people seeing fire or thunder rolling through the skies. It was quiet. It was simple. And it was personal. It was for one man. But through his courage to share it, that moment has now reached thousands, maybe even millions, and it might be reaching you right now. So the question becomes deeply personal. What do you believe is happening on the altar? When you walk into Mass and see the priest lift the host, do you believe it's truly Jesus in front of you? Or is it just a ritual, something sacred? Yes, but symbolic. Because if the Eucharist is real, truly, profoundly, miraculously real, then that changes everything. It means Christ is not far away. It means God is not a distant idea. It means heaven touches earth every day, quietly, humbly, hidden in something as fragile as bread. And if you believe that, if you even want to believe that, then maybe it's time to come closer. Maybe it's time to kneel again, not just with your body, but with your soul. Maybe it's time to look past the routine of religion and discover the heart behind it, a heart still beating for you. The Church doesn't ask for blind faith. It asks for open hearts. And God, in His mercy, sometimes gives us more than we ask for, like fire in a monstrance, like living heart tissue hidden in a host, like ab blood that never decays. These are not legends. These are modern events studied by scientists, photographed, tested, and documented. But more importantly, they are invitations to believe again, to believe more deeply, to believe not just in what is seen, but in what is eternally true. If you're struggling with faith, you're not alone. If you're tired, doubtful, or distant, you're not forgotten. If you're waiting for a sign, maybe this is it. And maybe God is saying to you, as He said in silence to John that night, "I am here, I am real, and I love you." If this story stirred something in your heart, we encourage you to share it with someone who may need it. Leave a comment below. Tell us how you've encountered Christ in the Eucharist, or what this message means to you. And if you're searching, keep searching. If you're doubting, Keep asking. If you're tired, come and rest. But most of all, come back to the altar, because He is waiting, and His heart is still beating for you.